Oh, it says we're live, Bruce.
It does. It says we're live.
Do we believe it?
I think we're off center just a little. You got to
What
come
if
this
we
way
have
just a hair.
sound?
I think.
I'm supposed to check that.
If we don't have sound, then we'll try it on your phone.
Okay.
Because I don't know where to try it.
Well, it'll take a while. Like, I've got to think about that. I got to remember to do that because.
Well, yes.
This is the highlight of my week, Bruce.
This
the
is
Pastords.
The Pastords on Wednesday mornings.
You're so far away.
Unless
it's like you're
Bruce
avoiding
forget.
me.
I was so used to Marie sitting right there.
I think I have COVID or something.
You don't have COVID, do you?
Come on here, you.
Did you see the way my head went away? It's like instinctively. What's going on here? I don't even know what's happening.
Oh, come on. You know you love a good Raj hug.
So, big news in the football world, Raj.
Oh, let's go.
I don't know which is bigger.
We're the Pastords, Bruce and Raj. Okay, yeah, go to football.
Inglorious Pastords. We have to talk a little bit of football during football season when we can.
What was this?
There was a piece of hair.
This is an illegal.
This is ineligible man downfield. Yeah, not good.
12 men on the field.
Yeah, Tennessee caught Kentucky with, I think, 17 men on the field last week, which I thought was a great play. By the way, make what's his name limp off like he's gonna leave the game. No, he's not. He's just gonna turn and go upfield on
If
you.
it wasn't intentional, then it's gonna be in the playbook.
Oh, it's in the playbook now. So the big news, a couple of big things. Number one, the Broncos scored 21 points and won the game because the
That's
magic
all
number
you've been
is
asking for them.
The magic number 17. You pointed out that the other team scored 17, so they would have at least gotten into a little playoff situation there, but overtime.
Never mind that they were 2-5,
but they're now 3-5, which in the AFC is not as bad as I thought it would be at this point in the running.
On that note, with the funky Monday night game,
didn't see that.
Well, Cincinnati lost to Cleveland.
Yeah, they were like right there together.
Which bumped. Now the Patriots are number 8 in the AFC.
Oh, that's good.
And you guys went one down because Cleveland jumped you guys. So you're at 12.
Right.
But right now,
So you're saying there's a chance.
Four American League East, not American League, the AFC East, 4 AFC East teams are top 8.
It is American. It's the American Football Conference.
Right.
AFC. They used to be things. Now they're really not.
Yes.
I don't even know why they do
Anyway,
that.
just a fun.
It's fun to watch. So it'll be interesting to see. My sense is if the Broncos win out, we go to the playoffs.
That's every team in the league.
It could happen. If our defense keeps playing well, it could happen. I'm like, Russell might be getting, the hang of it a little more.
Right.
Bigger news. I didn't see this coming. I was a little surprised by it. I thought, with us being 2 and 3 in the coaches poll, 2 in the AP, tied for second in the AP, 3 in the coaches
Bruce is
poll.
talking about UT
Tennessee
Vols.
Vols. Tennessee Vols. Thanks, Roger, for clarifying. But last night, 7 p.m. Eastern time, they were ranked number 1 in the college football playoff.
The initial.
And you know why that matters. That means we can lose this weekend and you're still in the hunt because you don't have to play in the SEC championship.
Where you start
matters.
Yeah.
The biggest surprise, though, was not Tennessee at number 1, was Clemson at number 4.
Yes.
Didn't get it.
Nope.
Still don't get it.
Yep.
TCU, they beat a couple of good Big 12 teams, slaughtered one last week.
But Alabama and Clemson both have a high, because of their last 10-year run, have you can just see that the committee.
There's a base they're starting with.
They get. Yeah. Which is why Tennessee even being able to.
Oh, it's amazing.
Surpass
because
it.
Tennessee has, we've been a dumpster fire for 15 years. It's like no one. But what's funny this year is they've become the darling of college football. If that Alabama game didn't, the LSU game sort of started it.
Right.
Go to Death Valley and just destroy an SEC opponent. A typically strong SEC opponent.
And at Death Valley is a tough place to play.
And I think they've gone up to like 12 or 15 in the rankings now.
They are
at
11 in the playoff.
Really? Isn't that interesting?
They're 10 or 11 in the playoff.
So strength of schedule is really what just pushed Tennessee all the way to
Right.
We're guessing because they showed the numbers, and anyway, it's just fascinating because I'm like that is the best place to start.
Yep.
Because then if you lose this weekend, which I don't think we will, I think it's gonna be kind of a 52-37 game, 52 Tennessee, 37 Georgia. I do think it's gonna be a little more of a shootout.
They lost a really good edge rusher. Georgia did.
They lost their linebacker. They start their starting middle linebackers out for the season.
Yep.
So, and he might have
Maybe
been
that's the same
center,
line.
a central rusher.
Maybe I may be
But
getting that.
that's
Yes.
huge, and I hate that
Right.
for Georgia.
Oh,
'Cause,
right. You're not looking for
I want
anybody.
their best team against our
Right.
best team because we just now got healthy and we've got all of our people back. So it's going to be it makes it's another storyline in that game. But I have an idea it's going to be a lot of offense.
So I had a thought about that. Wasn't looking for it. It wasn't even looking for something to talk about this morning.
Yeah.
But I realized it fits something to talk about. It dawned on me.
We call that a segue, folks, in the Pastords world.
Well, Bruce loves the word segue.
I do. It's great. I want to buy one day.
It's like foyer.
No, narthex is my favorite.
Ooh,
Narthex.
That's a good word.
Well, narthex, it sounds like the middle part of an insect, which is more of a thorax. But I'm like, narthex, that's an insect part. I don't.
Right.
Yeah,
I've got a
Roger.
serious case of narthex.
No, I'm taking.
Well, you should have gotten
No, I'm-
vaccinated,
right.
buddy.
It's more I'm taking narthex. Okay, that's kind of like I'm taking. Okay. Anyway, so you had a thought.
No,
When do I ever have to get Roger back on track? We're
No, it was-
switching roles.
comical. So like a week or two ago, I'm talking to you, and you were talking about this thing Vols fans feel of, come on, we have, of all things, we got to play Alabama every single year.
Yeah.
So
just
there was
have
that,
to.
right. So they are our
Other SEC East teams don't have to play Alabama
Right.
every year, but we do
but right
every year.
every single year. But here's what hit me. Tennessee being number one in that playoff ranking doesn't happen if they don't play Alabama.
Nope, I totally agree.
In other words,
Right.
Good win over Ole Miss.
Because you beat the darling of college football.
And what hit me is the harder your schedule, what the playoff committee is looking for, and this whole thing around strength of schedule.
Right.
What they're saying to teams that haven't played a tough schedule is, we don't know who you really are. But
Thus Michigan didn't make top four. They're like
Right.
5 or 6.
Right.
Because their non-conference schedule was high school teams.
Right. So they're saying, we don't know who you are, but the fact that Tennessee played Alabama, and LSU and Kentucky,
Two of the powerhouses, if you think of historic powerhouses
Right.
in the West, you're not thinking Arkansas, Ole Miss, Mississippi State sometimes, but the powerhouses are Alabama. That's why LSU Alabama this weekend
Right.
is the night game and it's such a big game.
Right.
Tennessee beat both of them.
Right.
Which is nuts.
right? And those are both have national championships in the last 5 years.
Yep.
So I mean, you're, but it hit me. You need adversity and hard things, and a hard schedule reveals who you really are.
Right.
So it took me to 1 Peter 1:6, though you've got to go all these trials, you're going through all of these trials. Then he talks about your faith. This is happening. You've got this hard road. You've got this hard schedule. You've got this so that your faith, like gold being proved in fire, might be, what's the word? It's proved genuine.
Yeah.
In other words, adversity reveals who you are. What the committee's looking for is they know who Tennessee, because we have seen what you've done under pressure. We've seen you
We've seen what you do when you get behind.
when you get behind. We've seen,
Which I said early on was important. Tennessee needs a game where they get behind.
Yep.
Because then you're going to see what do they do.
and a terrible turnover.
Oh my
I'm
gosh!
talking about a
Yes.
demoralizing turnover.
The handoff to the
Right,
Alabama
where you're really
secondary
saying,
for 6 yards from the end zone.
and late in the game.
Yeah.
So it's late in the game. You've done all this. It's like, oh, and by the way, what, you've lost your last 15 straight games to them. It's happening again. You were playing a great game. All the factors that would just say give up, but they don't give up. And the hard moments not only forge your metal, but they show it. So I was thinking, this is this beautiful, even what God is saying, what the Apostle Peter is saying. Listen, this hard road is going to show you something about who you are, and it's going to show something maybe more specifically about how strong God is in you. Your faith is going to be proved genuine. People are going to be able to see there's something to your life. Now, we know they're going to be able to see God's in your life. They're going to be able to see that. But anyway, it was just this funny thing of, in life, we want the easy schedule. But you have the easy schedule, you don't make the playoffs.
Yeah.
So just as a reminder, if we just think of that analogy, even when I'm praying, I'm asking God. So, I might be asking God, make my life easier, take away this hardship, take away this thorn in the flesh. And Jesus is saying, you don't know what you're asking, because you've got to make a trade-off. If I take the hardship out of your life,
right,
what you most want, you aren't going to get.
You aren't going to get. And what you most need,
you
aren't going to get. I was thinking as you were talking about that, there was a saying that, like, who you are is who you are when no one's looking, and there's some truth to that.
Mm-hmm.
But as I'm listening to you, I'm going, who you are is who you are under adversity. Who you really are,
yes,
is who you are under adversity. In other words, this character that Peter's talking about, it comes out. It squeezes out.
That right.
Which is what makes the story of Job so incredible, because that age-old story, possibly one of the oldest books in the Bible, Satan is arguing that Job's only acting right because everything's going right. Everything's going great. He's wealthy. He's got all this stuff. He's got a big family. But you take away the stuff, take away the family, he's going to fold like a lawn chair. And
that's exactly what
he doesn't.
Satan said, right?
Exactly what he said.
Right. He's going to prove his point. You put him in the fire, and here's what I think he's going to do.
Yeah. Well, and Satan was real clear on, I know he's going to do this. And then he comes back. So he didn't fold like a lawn chair. Yeah, but you take away his health. Right. I mean, skin for skin. A man will do anything. If you got your health, you got everything.
Make him play Alabama.
Yeah, we're gonna take his health from him. And again, in all of this, Job didn't sin. It's just he maintained his integrity. He maintained this faith. One of my favorite. I was sharing it with someone last week, but one of my favorite lines. Oh, it's on the Walls of Jericho this weekend. One of my favorite lines in Job is when he says, in the middle of all of this, and he's angry and he's understandably upset, and he has a lot of harsh things to say to God about.
He's ticked at God,
about justice
fair,
and all of that.
Right,
he said, but I know at the end of the day, my Redeemer lives, and I'll be standing with him. And I just love that. He, even in the middle of all of this, he had this undeniable hope that one day I will stand with my Redeemer. God will restore. And I'm just like, that to me is such hope. That is such faith. And I think what I was talking about over the weekend was the importance of, because it's funny, over the weekend, I talked about trial and suffering and told a little bit about our story with adoptions and infertility and all of that. But we learned the presence of God, the closeness of God in that season. I'm like, we wouldn't trade that for anything. To know the presence of God in a certain way, to know the closeness of God in a certain way, that wouldn't have happened except we went through that trial, that hardship, that suffering.
No,
although I still shudder every time I hear the words to that song. If 1,000 sleepless nights is what it takes to know you're near, I'm like, nope, I don't want to. I've had 10 sleepless nights in a row before. I'm like, ooh, I can't imagine 1,000. I don't know that I would survive that. I need sleep. Sleep is good.
No, what you said is so good. This reminder, yes, that our character gets revealed in adversity. Like I love that the contrast there. Not simply, yeah, character is what you do when no one's looking, but character is what shows up when you're under duress. So,
and on the other side, character is also what shows up when everyone's looking.
Yeah,
because I even thought about how celebrity culture or fame or notoriety can negatively affect. In other words, we think that's what we want,
right?
But then it can reveal our own character flaws when everyone's watching. There's so much scrutiny that.
Right.
Anyway, you were saying something important. No, it just made me think there's two sides to that.
Oh, no, there is.
Maybe character is what you do with all of your life.
Well, it's what you do with all your life, but where does it show up?
Yeah.
And I think it, there's a couple tracks I can go, but the starter track I was
April
going on.
April 15th every year, my character has to show up.
Great example, because there's where I was thinking. That was one thing I was thinking. Integrity.
Yeah.
When finances are tight.
Yeah.
That's when I can say, oh, I'm an honest person. I want to believe. But you know when you're going to know how honest I am?
Yeah.
Is April 15th. Is because I had a moment. I think doing my taxes last year, literally, and because I'm self-employed and I'm putting in all the data about exemption, I mean, all the costs and everything, numerous things that can't be verified, that can't, and I felt the pull at a couple of points. I'm trying to remember what the specific thing was, but I realized I think at some point I realized there was a mistake I had made.
Oh, I've had that. But I forgot a cash payment.
And it was this was going to cost me, I think, $800 in my taxes. And you talk about, the wrestle. I mean, you talk about the, but that is where, and that was one of my better moments. That was one where, and part of that was, I am a follower of Jesus. I don't want to do this really. But it's right. And there's something bigger than money. And there's something bigger. This is Jesus saving me, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
From myself, that integrity matters, but it gets tested in the fire. Metal gets forged in the fire. Integrity not only gets forged, but it gets revealed when you're in that. So I love that. April 15th. Yeah, that's it. That's when.
Well, and you were talking about it could cost you $800. I've had those integrity moments when it was after I did the tax amount in my mind, when it's going to cost me like, $38. And I'm like, literally, I'm seriously about to not claim this because it's going to cost me $38. And I don't know if some of that is this. It's almost like woven into the fabric of American culture. You don't want to pay more to Uncle Sam than you have to,
right?
And a lot of people just they're all of us are probably trying to minimize taxes, but some are literally we're going to do everything in cash so that no one can track that and everything else. But I realize it's even those small amounts, and when those like that $38 one came up, I couldn't help but remember the words of Jesus: "If you're dishonest in very little things, you'll also be dishonest in very big things."
Yep.
Whoever can be entrusted with little can be entrusted with much. But if you have not been trustworthy with that, you can't be entrusted with more. And then he goes on he brings it home to money, wealth, and possessions. He said, so if you have not been trustworthy in managing someone else's property, who then will give you property of your own? And I thought it was a reminder, because I'm doing a teaching this weekend on the whole award, steward, reward idea, what stewardship is. And it's this idea that we don't own anything right now. We don't own anything. Everything that we have has been entrusted to us by God for an unknown amount of time. I haven't thought about not just money, but even our talents, our skills. We don't know how long those are going to last. We don't even know how long we'll be sharp. enough to do certain things. In other words, it started making me think about stewardship at a whole different level. So this week I'm tasked, as we're breaking it up into 3 weeks. I've been tasked with award, and I'm using a line that you said, I think, on the podcast that was so good, which is your life is not a gift. In other words, a gift is this idea I can do whatever I want with it. This is just a gift. And I got to think, and in one sense, eternal life is very much a gift. But this life, Zoe, is a gift, but bios this is an entrustment. This is a steward. This is an award. And I'm expected to do something with it, which reminds me of a great dad joke I saw yesterday.
Oh, no.
I'm on dad jokes right now. Why did the Scarecrow get an award? You're going to love it.
Because he couldn't stand it, not having an award.
Because he was outstanding in his field. That's just great. I love that stuff.
Yes.
So yeah, I've been doing a lot of things on a lot of scriptures, even the passage, I think it's in 1 Corinthians 9 or 16, one of those. It's in one of those passages. I can never remember. But it says, your life is not your own. You've been bought with a price. And I'm like, I don't live like that a lot of times. My life is not my own. And again, I don't know how much of that is just woven into, the fabric of American culture and strong sense of individualism and all that. But when I sit back and go, no, my life's an award. It's an entrustment. And as Jesus said, and I mean, you can't avoid it. It's a clear teaching of Jesus. We think it was Spider-Man that said this. It's not. But too much is given, much is required. That's a direct quote from Jesus.
Right.
And it came out in the Spider-Man movie, but that's another thing I've thought about. How many times, even in movies or in cultural things, you'll hear someone say something that Jesus said.
Right.
Isn't that interesting? So that's one of them.
I'm sorry, but this brings me back to the football analogy again. What you said, it's just striking to me that when you said how you handle the small things sets the table for the large things, I was thinking, he's who's been faithful with a little bit can be entrusted. But isn't part of what, if I think even back to how you handle the cupcake games, the UT Martins or the easy games, the games you're supposed to, even there, the good coaches are saying, you treat this like because habits you develop, how you look at, how you walk with this. Okay, this is the easy, this is the small, this isn't. But the great coaches are going to say, you're never going to look at any game as a small game. No, there's not little integrity, really. If you don't...
Roger, this is so counterintuitive, though. Super counter. There's no little integrity.
Yes.
We do think that, I'm going to use a cultural term, a little white lie is not a big deal because it's not like a major deception where I'm bilking people out of millions of dollars. In other words, we see things on a relative scale.
Yep.
But Jesus says, no, the little things are the big things. The little things are the big things. Because what you do with these little things, as you said, sets the table for how you're going to handle the bigger things.
And here's the thing.
Again, and in my mind, I think, no, I can mess up on these little things, no big deal. But I'm going to be super faithful on these big things. And Jesus is like, Bruce, no, you're not.
Yeah.
I know you think you would be.
Right.
Okay. But you're really not.
It's like, for me, again, if it's that coach saying, if you're sloppy in a game because you think it doesn't
matter.
You think it doesn't matter. I'm playing this, Southwest Louisiana State, whatever. And
if you're a Southwest Louisiana State fan, I don't even know if that exists.
Yeah, I didn't mean that as
where it's not a.
Yeah, but you guys aren't good if you exist at all.
You're not.
No.
I mean,
but you want to say it doesn't matter in this game. It's not going to cost us. And a Saban, the great coaches.
Roger, that I watched it again last weekend because I looked at the Kentucky game as a trap game.
Yes.
Because here's the thing. You got Georgia coming up. Everybody, that's the big game. That's the one. And I'm like, oh gosh, they cannot. Everyone's about looking ahead and all that. You just can't look ahead. So whether it's UT Martin or Austin Peay. Did you say that Pay? Is it Pay or P?
Austin P.
I think I can't bring myself to say Austin P. I just can't. But
Did Austin pee?
Did Austin pay? Did Austin pay? Either one works.
Or pee?
Or, I don't know whether Austin Peter paid.
We don't know. Put in the comment section.
you
You're
can tell us
certainly
whether
welcome
it's
to
Austin pay or
inform
Austin P.
the Pastords about pay or pee.
But all of the, and I hadn't even thought about it. You're right. All those games mattered. Like it was important that they were up on UT Martin 52-0 in the first half. No, it was important. And I'm glad they didn't just continue to add to it, because some teams would just let's get it to 80 to 90, whatever else. But they're like, no, this matters. What you do in the little games is going to affect what you do in the big games.
Right. You can't, what's the phrase? You can't take time off. You can't, there's no point where you can take off in a game. You can just, not play smart here, or because the good coaches know this is where the big moments are forged in the small moments.
Not only that, but I thought I was listening to an interview with Josh Heupel last night. You know, they interviewed him right
Tennessee's
coach. They come out with number one, and they were talking about, you know, you're going into a very hostile environment, and this is probably one of the biggest games, you know, in Georgia's history for a while. It's a huge game. Fans gonna be crazy. He goes, and I just love that he said this. He said, "Yeah, we'll be using a silent count." He said, "But we do that at home as well." And I'm just like, that's just smart. You know why it's smart?
You're training it. Yep.
Because in Neyland Stadium, the crowd can get too crazy, and all of a sudden you can't hear. They're so excited about the team on offense. The offense still, but think about the smart coaching there. We're used to doing a silent count. So when we go into Athens, it's not like, okay, this is an all new thing.
Yep.
Do your best with it.
You're getting trained.
They're doing a small thing at home that isn't essential.
Right.
That's preparing them for a time where it's going to be like super essential.
Yeah.
There's several things about the way he's coaching. I just love it.
Now I'm going to let you.
Sorry. And I have to make sure that this posts before this weekend, because otherwise this might be a goofball podcast. I'll make sure it gets on Facebook maybe late today.
No. So this is here's the game. I'm going to give you an incident, and you come up with a sermon. What it illustrates. I don't know. That's just a. Okay.
Oh, so we're playing the sermon game.
Yeah, sermon game.
Very good.
You're good at this. Okay. What's the lesson? I was thinking about this. So I want to hear where you might go with it. So going into this season, if I'm not mistaken, UT, they're not ranked in any poll.
Nope.
So nobody thinks they're good. They're nowhere in the top 25. No one thinks they're one of the 25 best teams in the country.
And I told you in a podcast before the season started, they'll either go 9-3 or 5-7. That was my thought.
Right.
Missed it by that much. Okay, so go ahead.
Well, they could still go 9-3. But...
Right. Can you imagine? That would just be so sad. We lose to Missouri, Georgia, Missouri, and South Carolina.
I just
ruined. Certainly we wouldn't lose to Vanderbilt. Tell me we wouldn't lose to Vanderbilt. That would be
Vanderbilt. Whoop. Yeah, the poor, yeah.
So no one ranked him. Well, you're going somewhere.
Well,
sermon illustration. I've got my sermon illustration hat on.
But that's the. Nobody saw them. All the experts were wrong. I don't know. I was thinking.
Well, here's a lesson, because I've been reading Jesus on this, and I'm fascinated by it. He would say, "My time has not yet come. My time has not yet come." In other words, when you look at Jesus's life, and for 30 years, we know very little about it.
Right.
We get a couple of childhood things, and age 12 is really the last we hear of Jesus until age 30.
Right.
So you got 18 years.
Missing years. The missing years.
Right. The adult years in that sense, because 12 years old, you've now stepped into this in Jewish culture, into that man zone.
He loses his dad somewhere in those
18 years. But we know almost nothing about his life. But he's waiting for his time. And Jesus would talk about other people's time had come. Even when he talked about John the Baptist, he would talk about, he had this idea of timing. And so the illustration is, we don't even see we don't even know when our moment might be. When God is going to use us in a powerful way, and that doesn't mean in a notorious way that everyone will know about, but our character is being shaped and formed behind the scenes for years and years and years. And we might even think our life doesn't matter that much. I mean, I've told you before, when I most struggle with depression and even temptation, it's when I begin to think my life doesn't really matter. I'm not making that much of a difference. There are other people that their lives matter. They're making a difference. But what about this thing of my time has not yet come? So I even think about 30 years. He's 30 years old. He goes to Cana. They go to the wedding at Cana. And I was thinking of this partly because I'm doing a Holy Land trip next year. And like day one, we're going to Cana. I'm like, oh, that's great. First miracle. And his mom says, hey, can you help him out? And he goes, my time has not yet come. And then it's almost like in that moment, the father whispered, no, it's time.
This is the start.
It starts now. And Jesus listened to that. He heard it then. He was clear up to that point. My time's not yet come. And then boom, he does this, what even is outstanding miracle. So then later on,
he's waiting for the Father's cue.
He's waiting for the Father's cue. And so even when other people are cueing him. So the Feast of Tabernacles comes up after that. His mother and his brothers are like, well, Jesus, aren't you going up to the feast? Anyone who wants to be a public figure and if you want people to see the things that you're doing, they need to go up to the feast. And it said, and parenthetically, John said, because even his brothers did not believe in him. They're like, you're going to be a public figure. And Jesus goes, my time has not yet come. And then he said this, any time is right for you. And I'm just still wrestling with that. In other words, I wonder if I don't think enough about God's timing with certain things, because I'm typically very impatient. I want to get to that thing or that next thing. And I'm like, but what isn't it better just to live every day going, I'm listening for that word. I'm listening for that nudge. Now it's time for this. Maybe it's now time for that thing to end. But Jesus over and over again in his, even when it talked about they tried to kill him in his hometown, but they couldn't because his time had not yet come. He goes to the Feast of Tabernacles. The Jewish people are it says they try to seize him, but they couldn't because his time had not yet come. And I'm like, that's why Jesus lived life in one sense so carefree. He's like, no one, in the same way that he told his disciples that no one can snatch you out of the Father's hands, he knew as well, no one can take my life before it's time. And it goes back to that thing I've talked about before. How do you live your life knowing one day you're going to die poorly on a cross? I mean, and Jesus knew that, but did not seem to live with a sense of dread about it. It's not time for that.
Right.
It's not time for that. The hour has not yet come. The time has not yet come. And then when it does, so it just made me think about your life, my life. In certain ways, we've already gone through seasons of life. Our time came for the season of planting Westside Community Church and being a part of that. The time came for us working at, Rocket City, 30 years ago or however long that.
A long time
ago. But what's the next season going to look like? And I think I always want to peer into the future and see, is my time coming? Is it, when I'm 58, you do wonder a little bit, are the best years behind me or are they still to come? Or is that, and how you even define what the best years are? And I was reminded last week that our grandpa Rice moved an entire ministry with like 100 employees from Wheaton, Illinois to Murfreesboro, Tennessee when he was 61.
Wow. My age.
Your age. Yeah. That's when a lot of people are thinking about slowing down. You got retirement coming up, benefits even available to you. It's just, and I'm like, I think we need to be always ready for the next season. We're always listening to the Father. I'm in a season where I'm sort of stepping into spaces that I feel like God just opens up, not necessarily planned, right. My plan, like all the counseling that I do, that's just a space that I'm stepping into. All the women's retreats and women's conferences, not something I planned, but it's a space that I'm kind of stepping
right
into as God. Maybe I'm right on time right now.
Yeah.
Instead of worrying about where I am in terms of my history, I do love, and I'll stop talking, but I never forgot it. One of the best talks that I ever heard Aunt Jessie do, Jessie Sandberg, at the last conference or one of the last conferences, the Joyful Christian Ministries conferences. she said, she was evaluating her life. When you get into your 80s, headed toward 90, you're looking back, understandably.
Right.
And she was like, I wonder what the most impactful time of my life was. Was it, in those formative years when I'm going to college and getting a master's degree? Was it in the early years of our marriage? Was it in the years of, child rearing and raising our kids? Was it in the years of being a university professor? Was it in the years where she was a chaplain of the Chattanooga Police Department? Was it in her years at Grace Baptist?
Writing a book, maybe.
Writing a book, working with a Sunday school and teaching and all of that. And she just felt like God spoke to her, Jesse, the most important time in your life is right now. The most impactful time in your life is right now. And I've never forgotten that. I'm like, that's so, she never lost her sense of mattering. We matter. And it's not scope of ministry or the number of people. And I think mom and dad are on this too. Just, like visiting them a couple of weeks ago, they're known as like the king and queen of the assisted living space now, because mom makes it her mission in life to meet every person there, whether it's a resident or a nurse or an administrator, and make sure they know that they're seen and they're cared about. And because her life matters. And now matters. So some existential thoughts from Bruce on the Pastords today. Bet you didn't see that coming.
Well, of course, my mind naturally goes all kinds of places, but I'm thinking with all of these,
thinking, how did we get here?
And how do we get out?
Roger works in a world of we move in a linear thought progression from this to this to this. I'm much more of a web person. Hyperlink here, whoop, whoop, over here, there, back.
I can bounce around pretty well.
You can. That's true.
I was, but I was thinking about this. If I'm thinking about Jesus, Bruce, are you laughing about something? Yeah, I know. No, I can't say anything serious right now because
I thought you were going to bring up the pickleball phenomenon.
I was not going to. But
it just struck me.
Since we haven't talked about pickleball, let's bring that in.
Just a huge thing now. No, go ahead.
No.
Good times.
So I'm looking at almost all the experts were wrong on Jesus.
Yeah.
And all that mattered to him was the Father. We talked about this last week or the week before. God's the report card on our life. But here's the thing. People, we've got to pay attention to what God says, because people can be wrong about us. This is where I think about, Tennessee Vols, nobody's ranking them. Nobody sees them. They're just not a good team. And they're going off past history. They're going off of, and we want to do that.
Not a good team is not strong enough. They're a bad team.
Right. But how often we do that in our lives too? We're looking at the past. We're looking at, and then everybody else is reminding us of what we used to be. They don't see anything. And where do we sometimes just buy into that? And so we give up, or we don't try, because the experts, everybody who knows, the people, the voices in our life, they're bringing up the past. They're bringing what we have been.
Oh, and Roger, here's the thing. We're doing it all the time. Internal judgments. We're ranking people all the time.
Right. And ourselves. As it relates to people.
The import of a person's life, how much they matter. And this is where God continues just to change my thinking in a beautiful way. And I'm just seeing everyone as, no, this person very much matters. And in different ways than I'm going to matter in the sense of, but it's not a hierarchy. It's not a ranking.
Right.
It's just, we all matter. And what we do with our life matters. But I was even thinking, so I was reading Jesus this morning, and he talked two things that struck me that were so good. And it goes back to this ranking, judging.
Yeah.
Because the college football playoff committee is having to make judgments.
Yes.
And those judgments are based on a certain amount of experience, things that they've seen. But there's no way in my mind that anyone can be completely objective about anything. It's like you said, Clemson in my mind is not an objective fourth
I don't
person
see it, right.
in that. And again, TCU would make fourth.
And to our Clemson listeners,
I know I'm not. We'll see. Who knows? But But two things. So one, Jesus said, because they're always trying to ask him to validate his ministry and all that kind of stuff and do a miraculous sign. And he said, you don't accept my teaching. He said, you'll accept the teaching from another man. He said, but understand this. He said, a man who is seeking God will come to understand that what I'm speaking is God's words. He said, a man who speaks on his own does so for his own honor. But a man who speaks for the one who sent him is a man of truth. And I'm like, that's what I want to be. I mean, it just struck me. I don't want to be a person who's speaking to gain honor for myself. That's the temptation in the speaking world or in the writing world. We've talked about it before. All of us want to be discovered. Mm-hmm. We want to be, I don't know, and we don't even know why that is totally. But maybe it's because we want to know externally that our life matters or that it's valid. But Jesus wasn't looking for validation. He was just saying, I do what the Father does. I say what the Father tells me to say. But the person who speaks on his own, they're doing it to gain the honor of men. That honor for themselves, but honor from men. Then later on, he talks about judging by mere appearances.
Right.
He said, you guys preach Moses' law, but none of you are keeping it, which I'm sure ticked everyone off. He's like, you make sure that someone, can be circumcised on the Sabbath so that the law of Moses isn't broken, but don't you see you're working? And he said this, stop judging by mere appearances and make a right judgment. And that's where I left the house this morning. I haven't thought that's what we talk about today. I'm like, how often do we judge by mere appearances or very shallow things? And Jesus had used that analogy, not just with circumcision. He says, if you got an ox that falls in a ditch on the Sabbath, guess what? You're going to pull him out. If your son falls in a pit on the Sabbath, you're going to pull him out. I'm here to heal the whole man. I'm here to rescue the whole person. Mm-hmm. Make a right judgment. I just thought, how often do we make, I don't know, flash judgments based on appearances, based on human traditions, and man, we miss it. We just miss the heart of Jesus. I haven't thought about, is it, Jesus seemed to be arguing from common sense sometimes. Just common sense. Right. I know the rule is this. I get that. Okay. But common sense says we should take care of this at this time.
Right.
Another existential thought.
Yeah, it reminds me, though, this is how often we're living our lives. Jesus is calling us to, because we know people have their scorecards out. We know people are, because we do it. And there's a part of that is somewhat natural. There's some that we can, people are making their evaluations. Are we successful? Is that a good decision?
That's right. Is that a good idea?
And people are doing, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think what Jesus was saying, don't live under that. Because the majority of the people could be thinking, you're going the wrong direction.
Yeah.
The majority of the people, different voice could look, Messiah isn't, it's not going to die. You can have all the, and it's just more, again, that idea we've come back to of, no, I'm going to pay attention to what God thinks but not just living under the phrase, they love the praise you love.
Yeah. They love the praise of man more than the praise of God.
But part of what it's getting at, all of us are influenced by the praise of others.
Yeah.
Not wrong in itself, but that can't be the driver.
Right.
What people are going to say, what people are going to think.
Because some people did honor Jesus, and that wasn't wrong.
Right. No. They were dead on right, and they so anyway, I just think there's just another reminder among many. So is it time for our
ditty?
Ditty? Is it ditty time? Ditty. The closing.
We had so many things going on.
Right. You could choose one. I could choose. So let's see. If I think about,
if Tennessee loses, they actually win. Like following Christ. Losing,
I don't know what this
is winning.
You're sick again this week, aren't you?
I am. I have a sinus infection.
It's so.
Look, I think I'm blushing just a little. That was so bad.
No, strength of schedule. No, nothing rhymes with schedule.
The more adversity, also a non-rhyming word.
The harder, when the going gets tough, you'll
Tough.
see if you're enough.
Don't let trouble burst your integrity bubble.
We are spiraling.
We're going down fast. We're circling the drain. Ooh, Admiral Nelson.